discover the incredible transformation after two tiny puppies begged for help from an old woman. The wind howled through the cracks of Ruth's farmhouse, a haunting song that twisted around the dust motes dancing in the dim light. She sat in her worn armchair, heart heavy. The flickering flames of the fire barely reflected the warmth she longed for, both outside and within her. Once a vibrant home, her house now resembled a mausoleum of memories, filled with echoes of laughter that had faded long ago. As she stared into her empty teacup, she thought of her son, Tom, buried under the weight of responsibility, burdened by a past he couldn't escape. Just then, a series of faint whimpers skirted through the chilly air, breaking her from her reverie. She shuffled to the front door, each creak of the floorboards a reminder of her age. Swinging the door open, Ruth's breath caught in her throat as she spotted two tiny puppies. Their shivering forms and desperate searching eyes mirrored her own loneliness. "Oh, you poor things," she murmured, reaching down to scoop them into her arms. Would nurturing these small lives be the break she needed from the spiral of isolation? As she fed the puppies warm milk, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of joy. They were a fresh start, little bundles of vulnerability that breathed life back into her somber routine. Those innocent faces reminded her of the days spent with Tom, though now full of tension and unspoken words. Their conversations rarely strayed beyond, "How's work?" or "Everything okay?" Their once easy relationship now strained beneath layers of unvoiced grievances, tradition clashing with Tom's ambitions. Before long her phone buzzed, breaking the rare tranquility. "Mom?" Tom's voice crackled over the line, heavy with frustration and the soul-weary weight of his mechanic shop. Their exchange felt fraught, laced with simmering resentment. "I just don't get why you can't understand what I want," he said. But Ruth could only hear echoes of their distanced relationship. She felt herself tremble, a familiar unease creeping in as she began to doubt if she could ever bridge that divide. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ruth's fingers drummed against the side of the teacup as thoughts raced in her mind. The puppies were gradually healing her heart, but she feared that without a genuine connection, it would only be a temporary fix. How could she convey to Tom that success didn't solely rely on profit margins or traditional expectations? The phone call left her questioning whether they'd ever reach an understanding. Days passed, and with the town's mayor's announcement of a best pet contest, Ruth felt a desperate hope revive within her. Perhaps this would be her way of approaching Tom, sharing their nurturing journey through the puppies. But when she suggested it, she sensed the reluctance in his tone as he cautiously agreed. Their fractured relationship hung in the air like an unlit wick, ready for a spark, but fraught with trepidation. As their attempts at reconnection unfolded, unexpected turmoil came tumbling down. Tom overheard whispers of corrupt dealing swirling around the mayor in the local diner, and now he faced a choice that felt monumental. How could they jeopardize their fragile bond while wrestling with the iron weight of morality? With the contest drawing closer, the psychological strain increased, and with it, Ruth's heart began to race, feeling the essence of a deeper conflict within her own values. They were standing at a precipice, and she feared this might unravel everything she had longed to restore. Would their struggles with integrity draw them closer together, or push them further apart? The tender lives of the puppies might just be the catalyst for their reckoning, a threat looming large against the fragile web of family ties. What fate awaited them as they stood on the edge of impending conflict? The upcoming contest would not just reveal their dogs to the world, but also the unresolved tensions buried deep in their relationship. Time was running out, and the complexities of their lives demanded clarity long before the sun rose on that crucial day. Ruth sat on the edge of her couch, the two puppies nestled against her lap, their warmth a soothing contrast to the chill that lingered in her heart. The idea of the best pet contest loomed large in her mind, as did the unshakable anxiety surrounding Tom's hesitation. She couldn't shake the feeling that this contest could be more than just an opportunity to showcase the puppies. It felt like a lifeline, a way to forge a path back to her son, yet it threatened to expose the fractures in their relationship. Every time she glanced at the puppies, joy intertwined with trepidation. They needed her care, just as Tom did, even if he didn't recognize it yet. She envisioned the contest, baking dog treats and practicing tricks. Could those small steps lead to bigger conversations? Or would they remain forever trapped in their misunderstandings? As the day approached, Ruth decided to focus on preparation. She spent hours researching puppy training tips, pouring her heart into every moment spent with the two bundles that had turned her world upside down. The transformation in herself was palpable. She had a purpose again. She no longer merely existed within the walls of her farmhouse. She thrived as she nurtured lives that depended on her. Yet, every time she reached for the phone to call Tom, dread constricted her voice. What if he rejected her ideas again? What if he didn't show up for the contest at all? The insecurities burgeoned, clashing with her determination. To mask her anxieties, she immersed herself in routines with the puppies who seemed to sense her tension, echoing her emotions through soft whimpers and playful barks. Finally, unable to bear the weight of indecision, she dialed Tom's number. "Hey, Mom," he responded, and she could hear the tiredness underneath his greeting. Rehearsing her lines in her mind, she stammered, "I wanted to talk to you about the contest." "Mom, I'm not sure I have time for this right now," he cut in sharply. It felt as though the air had been sucked from the room. Ruth hated herself for wanting this so badly, fearing that Tom's retreat into work was a direct reaction to her constant probing. She hesitated, but something within her shifted. "Tom, please just listen. These puppies, they're helping me find joy again. I want to share something with you that matters. Can we work together on this?" Silence fell, stretching infinitely. The flickering firelight cast shadows on the walls, and Ruth's heart raced. This was no longer just about the contest. It was about facing the chasms between them, seeking common ground amidst swirling doubts. "I guess we could try," Tom finally replied, his voice lacking enthusiasm but conceding to her hope. A small victory, but the fragility in his tone stung. Ruth felt a swell of gratitude mingle with the familiar fear. What if their combined efforts didn't yield the connection she yearned for? The days passed, filled with awkward training sessions where laughter intermittently broke through the tension. Yet Thomas kept pulling further away as the day of reckoning drew near. He was spiraling through his own demons, caught up in hastily made choices surrounding the mayor's rumblings of corruption. Facing the specter of right and wrong weighed heavily on him, and Ruth could sense his distraction. The puppies became the only constant in the increasingly shaky foundation of their reconciliatory effort. Was the contest a chance for Tom to breathe, to possibly step away from his conflicting duties? Or would they reveal deeper complexities that laid bare their vulnerabilities, exposing them to each other in an unguarded moment? As Ruth watched Tom wrestle with his choices, she realized the lurking shadows of their past had yet to disperse. The fragility of their relationship became undeniable. Each playful bark and wagging tail, a reminder that time was of the essence. Soon the contest day would arrive, a pivotal moment for them both. But as clarity emerged about the stakes of this event, it slipped through her fingers. Would it be a turning point in their relationship, or simply a beautiful illusion built on the dog's innocence? The tension built to a crescendo, forcing Ruth into a reflective state, confronting her own fears. What were they truly willing to risk for family and honor? As she prepared for the day ahead, Ruth knew one thing for certain. Both she and Tom were standing at a precipice, and the choices they made could alter the course of their story forever. Ruth stood in the small kitchen, counter cluttered with flour and dog treat ingredients. The aromas of peanut butter and oats filled the air, mingling with her anxiety like an unwelcome guest. She had promised herself she would lean into the joy of this project, that the simple act of creating these treats would add a layer of connection with Tom. Yet, each crack of the egg felt like a reminder of what was at stake, her relationship with her son hanging in the balance as the contest loomed closer. The puppies, blissfully unaware of the swirling worries around them, trailed after her, their playful antics brightening the otherwise weighty atmosphere. "Look at you two," she whispered, kneeling down to scratch behind their ears. "You're the glue, my little cheerleaders." Despite their innocent presence, each laugh she shared with them felt overshadowed by the ghosts of fractures in her past life with Tom. Just as she attempted to focus on mixing the ingredients, the sound of her phone vibrating on the countertop broke her concentration. The name on the screen made her pulse race. It was Tom. He was calling. Heart in her throat, she swiped to answer. "Hey, Mom," he said, his tone guarded, strained. "How's it going with the puppies?" Ruth hesitated, hunting around her mind for the right mixture of honesty and enthusiasm. "We're having a blast, but I need to talk to you about something important. Can we work on those tricks today?" "Can we do it tomorrow? I have a lot on my plate right now," he replied, the resignation in his voice piercing her heart. Every advance she made felt as if it were slipping from her grasp. "Tom, we need to practice. This matters to me. Maybe if we succeed, we can talk about, everything else." She could sense the weight of her words. They were an appeal wrapped in vulnerability. A sigh echoed through the line. "Fine. I'll come over." There was no excitement in his agreement, but the fact that he was conceding meant something, even if it felt partial. As she hung up, Ruth leaned against the counter and buried her face in her hands. Was she merely dragging him along? Every effort felt small against the mountains of problems looming over them. The gnawing fear was relentless. If they couldn't connect in this, would they ever find a way back to each other? Shaking off the despair, her resolve hardened. This was her chance. Maybe this contest wasn't just about the puppies. Maybe it was her hand extended towards Tom, a way to soften his guardedness. She decided to push through fear and inertia with clarity. With the sun setting, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor, she pulled out her phone to record a video of the puppies executing their tricks. She would edit it and send it to Tom, highlighting their progress, reminding him that despite the chaos outside, here was a glimpse of joy he could cling to. The idea blossomed, a tangible piece of their shared effort, a step towards understanding. Ruth carefully paced the session, encouraging the puppies with treats and praise. Laughter bubbled up as they performed, each little success reinforcing her determination. She felt invigorated, empowered, as if she was reclaiming a piece of herself that had been lost in the turmoil of her relationship with Tom. But when she hit send on the video, a tremor of doubt rippled through her. What if Tom saw it as trivial? What if it only deepened the chasm still shadowing their connections? Her fear clashed with the glimmer of hope that this might open a dialogue. Days morphed into a blur as Ruth focused intently on the contest preparations, each interaction with Tom tinged with equal parts excitement and anxiety. In each moment she held the puppies, cuddling them, training them, she reflected on her changed perspective. The act of nurturing was slowly reshaping her, teaching her patience and resilience, and in her quiet moments, Ruth began to confront a question that persisted, stalking her dreams. What if she could do more than keep this fragile connection afloat? What if this endeavor actually transformed not just her relationship with Tom, but her sense of self? The fluttering tension between potential and reality made her heart race. As the day of the contest drew near, she realized that she wasn't just preparing for a showcase. She was poised at the edge of a newfound courage. Through those two puppies, she was rediscovering the capability for connection itself. Then, just as she felt a sense of clarity settling in her mind, an unexpected knock at the door shattered the moment. Ruth's breath hitched. What now? With uncertainty creeping back in, she approached the door, wondering what revelation awaited her on the other side. Ruth's heart raced as she moved closer to the door, each step heavy with apprehension. She paused, peering through the peephole, and spotted a figure standing on her porch. It was a woman she recognized, a neighbor she occasionally exchanged pleasantries with but didn't know well. Oddly, the woman appeared flustered, twisting her hands and shifting from foot to foot as if she were nervous about the very knock that had interrupted Ruth's moment of contemplation. With a deep breath and a quiet determination, Ruth opened the door. "Hello, Anna," she said, forcing a smile despite the fluttering tension in her chest. "Is everything okay?" Anna's eyes darted nervously before she finally spoke. "I hope I'm not bothering you, Ruth. I've been meaning to reach out. You know my daughter, right? Well, she's been feeling down lately, and I heard about the contest. I thought, maybe if you had some extra treats or—" Ruth felt a swell of empathy coursing through her. She understood intimately the struggles of a child feeling disconnected. The weight of her own situation with Tom echoed in her heart, an ever-present reminder of how important connection was, especially between a parent and child. "I have lots of treats and some extra time today. Want to come in? I'd love to show you what we've been working on with the puppies." Relief washed over Anna's features as she nodded and stepped into the warm light of Ruth's kitchen. The familiar scent of peanut butter and oats hung in the air, and Ruth sensed it was not just a physical space being opened, but an emotional one. With genuine enthusiasm, she gestured toward the puppies who were eagerly waiting near their training area, tails wagging in anticipation. As they pivoted to observe the puppies' antics, small moments of joy splintered the tension. The sight of the puppies tumbling over one another sparked laughter between the two women. Ruth directed Anna to help with the training session, encouraging her to try teaching the puppies simple commands. It was a shift, one that took Ruth out of her own worries and allowed a fresh layer of connection to form. While Anna attempted to get one of the pups to sit, Ruth felt a growth within her, an ability to guide and inspire. This was more than a distraction. It was reaffirmation of her role as a nurturer and a connector. The laughter continued to flow, and with it, Ruth's spirits began to lift. "This is wonderful, Anna," Ruth commented as they exchanged tips and experiences about pet training. The puppies responded well, their eager faces reflecting the bond that was forming in their training space. Yet beneath the laughter, Ruth noted a flicker of sadness in Anna's eyes whenever their conversation circled back to her daughter. "You know, my son and we're having some challenges too," Ruth admitted, scanning Anna's face for signs of understanding. "These puppies, they remind me of what it's like to foster connection." Anna looked thoughtfully at Ruth, her expression shifting as she recognized the depth of their parallel struggles. "It's so hard sometimes to keep that bond when everything else feels against the odds. But seeing your work with these pups, it feels like hope, doesn't it?" The realization settled over Ruth, illuminating her path forward. The lesson was simple but profound. Through nurturing, she was not only attending to the puppy's needs, but her own emotional healing and growth. And perhaps this was what she had overlooked all along. The strength found in vulnerability and shared challenges. The lightness of their shared laughter began to instill a quiet determination in Ruth. Maybe the upcoming contest wasn't just hers. It could serve as a bridge, one that connected others too. The puppies were catalysts for healing, serving not just her relationship but potentially giving Anna the comfort she sought for her daughter. As Anna left, her spirits visibly brightened. Ruth felt a renewed sense of purpose. Perhaps this was her calling, to foster connections not only with Tom, but with others who traveled the same rocky road of family relationships. Just as she began to feel a sense of control and clarity leading up to the contest, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Tom. A thick tension returned as she opened the text, her heart pounding in anticipation. What new revelation awaited her, and would it bring her closer to her son or push them further apart? Ruth's breath hitched as she stared at the screen, her heart pounding like a tribal drum in her chest. The words seemed to blur, twisting and shifting like her emotions. "We need to talk," it read, plain and unembellished. Each syllable felt heavy, laden with unsaid truths and potential confrontations. For a moment, uncertainty paralyzed her. Was this a plea for understanding, or would it end in more turmoil? Tom had become a stranger in many ways. She recalled how their last conversation had devolved into silence, laden with unspoken frustrations and hurtful words. In the midst of directing all her attention toward her budding relationship with the puppies and Anna, she had been drifting further away from Tom, lost in the instinctual urge to cultivate joy where there was pain. Could reconnecting with him be as simple as it felt with the puppies? She set the phone down and paced the kitchen, the lilting barks of the pups reverberating through the air. The joyous energy of the training session now felt distant, almost like a dream fading away. A decision bubbled within her, pushing her into a moment of self-reflection. She had been so focused on her role as a nurturer to others, she had neglected her primary responsibility as a mother. Her mind raced. A mixture of longing for reconciliation and fear of confrontation. Remembering the laughter shared between her and Anna, she questioned whether Tom felt that same urgency for connection. What if this moment could bring them closer instead of further apart? Yet the stakes felt impossibly high. He had been retreating into shadows, needing guidance that she had not known how to give. The idea of a heart-wrenching conversation gnawed at her, but she steeled herself, gripping the edge of the table. She would not shy away from this. Ruth understood visceral connecting points now, how her relationship with the puppies had unearthed not just latent nurturing instincts, but laid bare personal flaws as well. She had the capacity to face discomfort, to foster growth, and to navigate potential failures. With renewed determination, she grabbed her phone again. She needed to take control of this moment before it slipped further through her fingers. She typed a response, her fingers hesitating slightly above the keys, as each word formed another layer of vulnerability beneath her confidence. "What time?" The quick ping of the incoming response brought a mix of anticipation and dread. "Can I come by at 7? I need to explain some things." Ruth's pulse quickened. All day she had been in control, offering comfort and connection. Now the tables had turned. She was confronted with uncertainty, raw and unyielding. However, instead of retreating into the familiar cocoon of doubt, she leaned into the challenge. There would be no distractions tonight. As the hour drew near, Ruth felt the weight of apprehension settle over her again. By 6:50 she glanced around the kitchen, ensuring everything was in place. The puppies lay sprawled, remnants of their training session scattered across the floor. She thought of how each moment spent nurturing them had unwittingly prepared her for this impending conversation with Tom. They had become a source of inspiration, demonstrating that every stumble could be transformed into a stepping stone. When the doorbell rang at 7, it felt like a thunderclap against her resolve. Ruth opened the door, welcoming a timid but earnest Tom. His eyes flickered with unease, yet beneath it all, she sensed a flicker of hope. Would this discussion act as the lifeline they both desperately needed, a bridge to understanding, or was it a mere prelude to further heartache? Without thinking, she urged him inside. The puppies rushed toward Tom, their joyful chaos enveloping him, but their momentary distraction did little to ease the building tension. Ruth squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever vulnerability lay ahead. As they settled onto the couch, she braced herself, knowing that what was about to unfold could either shatter or mend the fragile strands of their relationship. She took a deep breath, recalling Anna's earlier words about hope. Would her own perseverance extend to Tom? "Let's talk," she began, her voice steady but her heart racing, setting the stage for a confrontation long overdue. Ruth's eyes searched Tom's face, craving reassurance but meeting only his flickering gaze down at the puppies now clustered around them, all lolling tongues and wagging tails. The warmth they offered, in stark contrast to the tension crackling between her and Tom, felt almost surreal. She seized the moment, letting the puppies serve as both a buffer and a metaphor, a reminder that even the smallest creatures needed care to thrive. "Tom," she said, forcing the words through the tumult in her chest, "I know it's been hard for us." The remark hung in the air, thin but poignant. She wanted to thread vulnerability through her voice, hint at the hope she harbored for their relationship's future. He seemed to steel himself for the conversation. "I've been overwhelmed. I didn't realize how distant we were becoming until I felt it slip away." His honesty struck her like a bolt, and Ruth felt an internal shift. She returned to the nurturing perspective that had shaped her recent experiences. A parent guiding a child, a handler shaping a pup. "Not just you," Ruth interjected, her tone even and deliberate. "I've been wrapped up in my own world, nurturing the puppies and trying to fill a void, maybe avoiding our issues." In that moment of clarity, she recognized a truth. She had been subconsciously using the puppies as a shield against facing her own fears and failures within her family. The cognitive dissonance of wanting to nurture while neglecting a critical relationship sparked a flame of realization that flickered in her mind. He nodded, the tension in his posture easing slightly. "I felt shut out, like I wasn't enough." The admission was heavy and raw, a confession sent into an open wound. It mirrored her own fear of inadequacy, the dread that she couldn't master the chaos of their lives and emotions. What if we started fresh? The words plopped into the space between them, desperate but hopeful. I want to reconnect, Tom, not piecemeal, but fully. The gravitas of her statement settled into the couch like a weight, demanding reflection. Tom hesitated, uncertainty dancing behind his eyes. Yet Ruth sensed an ember of agreement smoldering as well. She had never seen him light up quite like he had when they first adopted their pups, a reminder that connection was possible, even amidst the grief and distance that had crept into their past. I don't want just to talk about problems, he said, and a flicker of gratitude washed over her. He was willing to meet her halfway. I want to create a plan, a new chapter for us, for our family. Ruth's heart quickened at the idea of a new beginning. What had felt a moment ago like an insurmountable chasm now felt like a chance, a pathway to healing that invited both of them to walk side by side. The intent behind Tom's words anchored her to the present moment, a heartbeat synced with her own burgeoning resolve. Let's set goals, she proposed, excitement bubbling beneath her steady voice. Not just for us, but for how we can involve Anna and the puppies. Let's find ways to grow together, instead of apart. Tom's eyes brightened as he considered the possibilities, a shift in their combined energy palpable. Yet a flicker of doubt crossed his expression, as if recognizing the weight of commitment and responsibility their aspirations entailed. Ruth's mind surged with questions. Could their individual growth be aligned? Would laying bare their emotional needs foster the bond she yearned for? Or would it unveil deeper fractures yet unexamined? Tugging at that thread of uncertainty reminded her of the puppies who learned quickly from making mistakes. As their conversation unfolded, they exchanged ideas and laughter, breaking down emotional barriers piecemeal. Every small triumph felt monumental, a rediscovered connection, a rekindled warmth filled the room where tension once festered. Ruth started to believe in a future where both goals and care could coexist. Yet somewhere beneath the laughter and shared smiles lurked the specter of untackled issues, financial stresses, parenting decisions, and lingering miscommunications. Would all this newfound connection withstand the onslaught of forthcoming life challenges? As the hour wore on, they plotted actionable steps, envisioning possibilities that resonated at the very core of their family. But just as clarity emerged, so did apprehension. Ruth sensed it within herself, yet unseen beneath the surface of their conversation lay unresolved truths that demanded confrontation. The moment of action had come, but was she prepared to dig deeper into the roots of their discontent? Before we close this chapter, let's ensure we're aligned on everything, she said, voice steady yet echoing with vulnerability, setting the stage for more challenging discussions ahead. But deep down she wondered, could these small advancements stand firm against the tide of unresolved issues waiting to rise again? Would their connection indeed bloom, or was it merely a fragile facade? The realization hung heavily. This was only the beginning. The sunlight filtered through the window, casting mottled shadows across the living room floor where Ruth and Tom sat. As they continued their conversation, a sense of burgeoning determination filled the air, yet the underlying tension refused to dissipate completely. Ruth wrestled with the implications of what lay ahead, new goals, rekindled hopes, the specter of unresolved issues hovering like a dark cloud. Let's not just create goals, but let's define what truly matters, Ruth suggested, her fingers absently tracing the puppy's soft fur. What do we want our family to look like, not just today, but a year from now? Tom leaned back, contemplating her words. The depth of this moment sank into Ruth's consciousness, stirring something within her. It was a yearning not just for connection, but for growth, both as individuals and as partners. She considered their relationship. How had they drifted so far apart? The puppies had been her refuge, a distraction from an uncomfortable reality filled with financial strain and unanswered questions about their future. It dawned on Ruth that nurturing had to go beyond the puppies. It had to encompass her family, dreams, and ultimately herself. Let's talk about Anna, Tom suggested tentatively. How do we want to guide her? Ruth's heart tightened. Their daughter was growing, and every decision made now would ripple into her future. I want her to feel secure, Ruth replied. I want her to know she can count on us, not just as providers, but as united parents. Tom's brows furrowed slightly, his expression grave. And if we can't manage that? If we fall back into patterns? The question hung heavily in the air. Ruth felt the impulse to dismiss it, to assure him that this would work, yet something deeper urged her to confront that uncertainty. What if the cracks they had ignored widened into chasms they couldn't cross? How do we commit to each other's growth, she queried, pushing her thoughts to the forefront. I want to nurture my own ambitions as well, to be more than just Ruth, the caregiver. Tom nodded slowly. What are those ambitions? That question jolted Ruth. For so long she had buried her aspirations under obligations. To vocalize them now felt both liberating and terrifying. I want to write, she finally confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I used to love it, but I put it aside for everything else. Tom's eyes widened, surprise mixed with admiration. Why haven't you pursued it? You're talented. I didn't think I had the time. It felt selfish. But I realize now that it's essential to who I am. To be fulfilled, I have to embrace all parts of myself. There it was. That moment of clarity. In facing her fears, Ruth felt empowered. Yet the fear of stepping outside her comfort zone loomed large. Could she balance her dreams with her responsibilities? Would Tom understand that her desire for personal growth didn't diminish her commitment to their family? I support you, Ruth, he said, gripping her hand tightly. Encouraged by his words, she took a deep breath. Let's hold each other accountable, she proposed, feeling a blend of excitement and anxiety. Their shared journey was no longer a solo expedition. It was a collaborative effort. Tom agreed, their goals interwoven like threads in a tapestry, each required for the completion of their family's portrait. They began mapping concrete steps toward their aspirations, family outings to bond, individual time to pursue passions, regular check-ins to discuss challenges. But as they laid out their plan, doubts whispered in the back of Ruth's mind. Yes, they were making strides. But was this enough? What if unexpected challenges threatened to tear their new structure down? The puppies frolicked nearby, a gentle reminder of adaptability and unconditional love. Yet Ruth couldn't shake the feeling of precariousness. Would the light they had ignited together guide them through impending difficulties, or would the darkness of their past consume them? As the conversation closed, Ruth felt a newfound fire ignite within her. Tomorrow we start fresh, but this isn't just a new chapter, it's a fresh draft, Ruth said, her voice firm yet reflective. We have to be prepared to edit and rewrite as we go. But deep down, a question nagged at her relentlessly. Was she truly ready to embrace the unfolding story, especially when the stakes felt monumental? The path ahead was uncertain, and Ruth felt the pull of destiny challenging her to step forward, one uncertain step at a time. Everything hinges on our next moves, she thought, the weight of her revelation heavy in the air. Would their courageous leap into vulnerability bring the connection they craved, or fracture their fragile bond even further? Ruth woke the next morning to the faint sound of the puppies stirring in their crate. Despite the gentle chaos of their playful yips, she lay still for a moment, contemplating the heaviness of the commitments they had discussed the previous day. Her heart raced with both anticipation and apprehension. Today was to be the first step in a new direction, a new draft of her life. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and allowed herself a moment to breathe. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating the space around her. This was a new chance, but the weight of her aspirations clung to her. Ruth reminded herself that she was not just a caregiver, but a woman with dreams waiting to unfurl. As she prepared breakfast, the scent of coffee filled the kitchen, soothing her nerves. Tom entered, rubbing sleep from his eyes. They exchanged warm smiles, but a silence coated the air with tension. Today, I was thinking, Tom began tentatively, maybe we could discuss your writing. What does the first step look like for you? That question drew her attention away from the sizzling eggs back to her own swirling thoughts. "I need to set aside dedicated time to write," she replied, mentally calculating how between everything, work, family, the household chaos, she could carve out those moments. "Why not start with 30 minutes a day?" he suggested, eager to offer practical support. "Before work or after the puppy's morning playtime?" It was a small, humble proposal, but the enormity of it clutched at her heart. 30 minutes felt monumental. "Will it be enough?" she asked, her voice laced with doubt. Deep down, she yearned for this. She craved the expression of her thoughts through words, but the self-imposed standard of enough loomed large like a daunting specter. "Let's not think about enough," Tom countered gently. "Let's think about starting. The journey is more important than the destination." His support ignited a flicker of determination deep inside her, yet Ruth felt the grip of fear tightening. What if the words didn't flow? What if she poured out her heart, only to find silence in return? Could she handle the vulnerability inherent in writing? What if her own voice shattered the calm she so desperately sought? As Tom moved on to help Anna get dressed, Ruth took a deep breath, drawing strength from her intention to embrace this new chapter. With practiced care, she prepared her writing nook, a small desk tucked in the corner of the living room, overlooking the backyard. The sight of the playful puppies offered comfort, a reminder not to overthink, but to explore. Time passed with the hum of morning activities around her, and as she settled into her chair, Ruth caught herself fleeing into thoughts of what-if scenarios. She needed to commit, to confront her inner critic. With the journal open and pen trembling in her hand, she took a deep breath and began to write. Each letter took shape with a sense of liberation, drawing from experiences of motherhood, the joys and struggles that colored her world. Words flowed, transforming into a tapestry woven from her heart's fabric. It wasn't perfect, but in that moment, it didn't need to be. After half an hour, she found herself still staring at the page, astonished by her willingness to bare her soul. There it was, a newfound sense of agency blooming within her. She looked up to find Tom and Anna playing with the puppies, laughter echoing through the house. This was the family she wanted. They were connection, joy, and possibility incarnate. Feeling empowered, Ruth became acutely aware of the balance she was striving for, not just between her ambitions and caregiving duties, but between vulnerability and strength. She faced a moral dilemma. If she continued to carve out this time for herself, would she sacrifice something vital for her family, or would this nurture them instead? Turning her thoughts inward, she mulled over the need for personal expression that didn't detract from the family's cohesiveness. Would the time she spent nurturing her passion for writing radiate love and creativity back toward them? As the day unfolded, she could sense their new path unfolding with each lifeful moment. Could embracing her ambitions bring them closer, or would it only distill the strains that threatened their unity? The uncertainty lingered in her mind, even as she savored her small triumph. Ruth knew she had opened a door that could lead to remarkable change, yet she remained wary of what lay beyond. As night descended, Ruth pondered over her day's revelations. She had made progress, yes, but what new challenges awaited in tomorrow's dawning light? The time had come for deeper questions and confrontations. This was only the beginning of their collective journey, and the shadows of doubt still loomed. Yet the urgency within her surged forward, inviting her to confront the very doubts that could either solidify her newfound path or crush the dreams just emerging in the darkness. Would her next moves bolster the fragile structure of their family, or would they shatter everything they had begun to rebuild? A question hung palpably in the air, urging her to step forward into the unknown. Was she ready to face whatever awaited in the unfolding narrative of her life? Ruth awoke early the next morning, the soft coos of the puppies instantly anchoring her to the day ahead. She stirred, glancing at her half-finished journal lying on the nightstand. There was something almost magnetic about the blank pages, promising yet intimidating. Her mind flickered back to the chaotic thoughts that had accompanied her writing yesterday, causing her heart to race once more with uncertainty. After breakfast, while Tom and Anna busied themselves with the playful puppies, Ruth snagged a moment alone. She could already feel the weight of the day pressing in, the dual pull of family responsibilities and her aspirations. Today was the day she had decided to expand her writing time to an hour, a significant leap that felt akin to jumping off a cliff. Settling in at her writing nook, she inhaled deeply, letting the morning sunlight wash over her. The familiar butterflies of doubt fluttered in her stomach. She wondered if she was rushing into something she wasn't ready for. It would be so easy to retreat into planning and dreams, rather than confronting the page once more. But this wasn't just about writing. It was about cultivating the essence of who she was. With a firm grip on her pen, she began. Each stroke felt like chiseling away at a block of marble, revealing the figure hidden inside. She wrote about the mundane turned extraordinary, Anna's laughter, the warmth of her morning coffee, and even the sheer joy of simple puppy antics. Yet, as the minutes ticked by, Ruth's focus fractured. Thoughts of inadequacy whispered in her ear. What did she really have to say? How could her experiences matter in the grander scheme of life? Just as she was about to set down her pen in defeat, a realization washed over her like a cleansing tide. Writing wasn't about broad philosophies or monumental events. It was the small moments. It was connection and introspection. Her stories were as valid as anyone else's, worthy of being shared. She allowed a small grin to spread across her face, the kind that propels you onward. With renewed focus, she poured her thoughts onto the paper. Words cascaded forth, vibrant and alive. She penned the struggles many mothers faced, the shame often tied to not feeling enough, but also the resilience rooted in those very struggles. There was a rhythm she could feel emerging, weaving the ordinary into the extraordinary as her voice began to solidify. Yet even as her heart swelled with accomplishment, nagging thoughts surfaced again. What would her family think when they read her words? Would they feel exposed or, worse, misrepresented? A tightening knot formed in her chest as she grappled with the integrity of her narrative versus the authenticity of her family's experiences. As the hour slipped away, the puppies wrestled at her feet, and laughter floated in from the living room, making her smile. Here was support, love, the very fabric of her family. Would writing about this family pull them closer together, or push them apart? Maybe expressing her experience would foster deeper connections, encouraging Anna and Tom to share their own stories too. When she finally set her pen down, she felt a sense of accomplishment mixed with uncertainty. She had carved out a piece of her identity, but now had to reconcile that with those she loved. Ruth leaned back in her chair, the sunlight casting a warm glow around her. Would the stories she told enhance the bonds they shared, or illuminate fractures she hadn't yet seen? Her heart ached with the weight of it all. But more than anything, she realized she was committed to this journey of self-discovery. She was ready to confront her fears, to face the vulnerability that writing demanded. As dusk approached, Ruth made another promise to herself. Tomorrow would be a day of exploration, and she would share her writing. It was time to turn the spotlight from her insecurities towards the truths she had unearthed. Yet, when she considered how her family would react, a familiar dread crept back in. Was she truly prepared to open up this part of her life to them? The question lingered, upright and uneasy. Could her words lead to greater understanding, or ultimately fracture what they had built? Ruth awoke that morning with a blend of anticipation and anxiety swirling within her. Today was the day she had promised herself, the day she would share her writing with Tom and Anna. The sun cast a soft glow over her writing nook, illuminating the words that had flowed from her heart onto the pages. Each sentence was a piece of her journey, an insight into the woman she was beneath the layers of mother and caretaker. After breakfast, she gathered her courage as Tom and Anna played, their laughter echoing throughout the home. She could hear the lively barks of the puppies harmonizing with her heart's tempo, a rhythmic reminder of the joy that could come from shared vulnerability. Taking a deep breath, she approached Tom, who was settling into a comfortable chair, a slight weariness in his posture revealing the toll of recent stressors. "Tom," she began, her voice steady yet tinged with nerves. "Would you mind taking a moment to read something I wrote? It's about our family, about everything we've been going through." His brow arched in surprise, but he nodded, receptive. Ruth handed over her journal, her heart pounding as he flipped through the pages. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words and potential acceptance. Each passing moment felt like a lifetime. When Tom finally looked up, his eyes gleamed with understanding. "This is really beautiful, Ruth. You've captured what we faced. It feels honest." The weight of his words settled over her like a warm embrace. She could feel her confidence swell, for the first time understanding that her voice mattered. "Do you think you could share this with Anna as well?" The question hung heavy in the air. Ruth's heart raced anew. Could they all sit together in this shared vulnerability, or would it thrust them into stormy waters? "Definitely. I think it could help her understand us better. Our struggles aren't just ours alone, they're a family story," Tom replied, a newfound determination in his voice that reinforced her budding confidence. When Anna joined them after a playful bout with the puppies, Ruth knew the moment to share had arrived. With Tom by her side, she prepared herself to expose everything she had penned, the trials, the doubts, the moments of triumph, all woven together in a tapestry of their lived experiences. "Anna, we want to talk to you about something important," Ruth said gently, gesturing for her daughter to sit next to them. Her heart pounded as she took a deep breath. "I've been writing about our family, how we've navigated these past months, and I want to share it with you." The younger girl's eyes flickered with curiosity as she nodded, piqued by the intent in her mother's voice. Through her storytelling, Ruth painted a picture of familial connection, of love intertwined with the struggles they faced, including her own journey toward reclaiming her voice through writing. The tension in the room shifted as Anna listened, absorbed in the words that reflected not just their challenges, but also the hopeful road ahead. As Ruth shared more, the weight of unsaid emotions lifted, and she felt a fragile thread of intimacy knitting them closer together. When Ruth finished reading, a silence enveloped the room. Then slowly a smile crept across Anna's face. "I didn't realize how hard it's been for you too," she said softly, her eyes shimmering with empathy. "You've always seemed so strong, Mom. I love that you're writing about us." The floodgates opened and Ruth felt the tears trickle down her cheeks. She had faced an invisible wall, unsure if her family would embrace her words, but here they were, recognizing her openness, connecting on a deeper level. "I'm trying to be strong for all of us," Ruth admitted, her heart swelling with pride for the bond taking root. As they shared emotions and reflections, the walls between them crumbled further, revealing piles of dreams, aspirations, fears, and needs that they had kept sealed away. Tom spoke next, his voice low but steady. "I'm proud of you, Ruth. You've done more than write. You've shown bravery in sharing our truth. It helped me see how we can tackle our challenges as a team, not just individuals isolated in our struggles." The buoyancy in their home felt palpable as they opened windows of honest dialogue, allowing light to pour in from the cracks that had once seemed burdensome. Each revelation brought clarity and breadth to their relationship, moving them beyond blame to shared understanding. They sat together, the puppies nestled at their feet, epitomizing the newfound harmony that had blossomed from transparency. They discussed how Ruth's writing could foster even deeper connections within their family, focusing on collaboration rather than competition. It was an exhilarating prospect, brimming with potential. As she watched Tom and Anna digest the revelation she had shared, Ruth knew she had conquered a significant hurdle. The past felt lighter, and her path forward was clearer than ever. She felt empowered, transformed into a version of herself that reconciled caregiving with personal ambition, harmonizing her needs with those of her family. As they continued to speak candidly, she affirmed her commitment to balance her dreams while remaining a nurturing presence in their lives. In her heart, Ruth realized this was not merely a singular achievement. It was a dawning awareness that nurturing did not diminish value, but rather expanded it, enhancing their collective experience. From that day forward, Ruth approached her writing, family interactions, and nurturing obligations with renewed fervor, confident in her ability to maintain harmony as she pursued her passions. What had begun as a swirl of doubts and insecurities transformed into a clear vision of who she was and who she wanted to be. A fulfilled mother, an accomplished writer, and a confident woman embracing life's complexities. And as she leaned into this realization, She resolved to share her journey and the lessons learned with others beyond the walls of her home, aware that vulnerability was a beacon of strength, guiding connections deeper than surface level. Her story would become a voice for healing, for herself, for Tom, for Anna, and for all who struggled to find their way back to authenticity. This journey was just beginning, and Ruth felt confident that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The future shimmered with possibilities as she grasped the pen once more, ready to share the next chapter of her incredible transformation with the world. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Remember, only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.